32 years ago, the world was suddenly invaded by the mysterious realm known as Elysion, bringing catastrophic destruction. From it emerged countless monsters, while humans engulfed by its power were twisted into horrifying demons. Humanity's only hope was Pandora, a crystal born from Elysion that served as its core. Destroying or deactivating a Pandora caused its Elysion to disappear, allowing humanity to narrowly avoid complete annihilation. The story then shifts to Haiguarou's District Q, home to Haiguarou, a sprawling slum city built by refugees after the Elysion disaster. Over time, it grew into a lawless metropolis with its own economy, operating beyond normal government control. Meanwhile, the Genagumi syndicate prepares for its next heist. Their boss orders the crew to ambush a transport arriving in 10 minutes and steal its cargo. Although one subordinate dismisses it as an easy job, the boss warns that escaping the police afterwards is the real challenge before assigning one member to deal with any complications. Elsewhere, a mysterious woman carrying a long, cursed katana makes her appearance. A caption reveals she is a former witch hunter. Moments later, an elf-eared swordsman admires her cursed blade and asks if it has already carved through countless monsters and witches. The boss freezes in surprise as he reveals the girl's identity. According to him, she was once the ace of the legendary wolf pack. One of his men laughs it off, unable to believe someone so young could have earned that title. The boss quickly shuts him down, explaining that the wolf pack of Shinshu is the elite anti-monster squad known as Dark. Even in the lawless streets of Haiguarou, everyone knows their reputation. Rumors even claim they once defeated an ancient dragon with only 10 members. Before anyone can react, the woman senses something. It's here. Moments later, the rumble of an approaching transport echoes through the area. Without hesitation, she launches herself toward the truck, drawing her cursed sword, Hien, as she dives from above. In a single, devastating slash, she tears through the truck's cargo, ripping it wide open, leaving the stunned mafia members speechless. Landing calmly among the wreckage, she ignores the chaos and searches through the debris. After a brief moment, she spots what she was looking for. Found it. Pandora. The Enic is the very core that gives birth to an Elysion. As she reaches for it, one of the mafia thugs raises his gun and shouts that she's trying to steal it for herself. The mafia immediately opens fire, filling the air with bullets. She effortlessly cuts through the barrage, calmly remarking that they're far too violent. At the same time, someone questions her. What will she do if Pandora's seal breaks? As she walks away with her sword resting on her shoulder, she quietly regrets her decision. Teaming up with the mafia may have helped her gather information on Pandora, but it was clearly a mistake. Moments later, the Pandora begins crackling with unstable energy as violent bursts erupt from its surface. Realizing the danger, she rushes to recover it before it's too late. Watching everything unfold from a nearby rooftop, a mysterious black cat silently observes the chaos. A blonde-haired figure notices the situation and remarks that things have just become far more troublesome. Before anyone can react, armored guards emerge from the smoke. But they're no longer human. Twisted into monstrous demons, they charge forward with terrifying screams. Shocked, she realizes they've all transformed into ghouls. The horrifying sight brings back memories from 1 year earlier. She remembers being forced to kill a kind-hearted comrade after he mutated into a monster. The painful memory only hardens her resolve as the charging ghouls close in. A monstrous ghoul lunges at her with a deafening screech. Without hesitation, she unleashes Scarlet Blaze, Release, following it with Cursed Funeral Flame, cleaving the creature apart in a burst of dark energy. As the mutated guard falls, tears well in her eyes. Barely able to look at him, she quietly whispers, "I'm sorry." A surge of black energy erupts as the transformation reaches its final stage. She knows that once someone has mutated this far, there is no saving them. The only mercy left is to put them down herself. Just then, a nearby black cat lets out a soft meow, catching her off guard. Confused, she wonders why a stray cat would be in such a dangerous place. At the same time, cracks begin spreading around the Pandora crystal. Suddenly, Pandora erupts with overwhelming power. Black lightning tears through the sky as the crystal activates, while the black cat shadow expands into something impossibly enormous behind her. Her eyes widen in horror as she finally understands what's happening. Elysion. Twisted alien matter begins spreading across the ground as the nightmare born from the planet itself starts to take shape. Crackling energy surges overhead as a massive blade-like structure towers above. Looking around the bizarre organic landscape, she realizes she's been completely swallowed by an Elysion. As always, the world inside is unpredictable. Every Elysion takes on a different form, sometimes a dense forest, sometimes a frozen mountain, and sometimes an entirely unknown realm. Without resistance, any ordinary human trapped inside would have little chance of surviving. Before she can move, something stirs in the darkness. A horned monster reaches toward her, forcing her into a defensive stance. Knowing time is running out, she sets out to find Pandora, the core of the Elysion. Just then, the mysterious black cat appears again, lets out a meow, and sprints toward a distant light. She calls after it, but before she can follow, a monstrous growl echoes behind her. A massive, horned beast drags itself from the shadows, revealing a towering minotaur-like monster. As they collide, a caption explains that whenever Pandora creates an Elysion, it chooses a vessel to become its guardian. She recalls hearing that Gunbi had once been blessed by Pandora, suggesting he may have become this guardian. Without missing a beat, she unleashes the Sword of Annihilation, first form, joking that a Minotaur probably isn't the type to deliver prophecies before striking head-on. The Minotaur charges with a deafening roar, but she meets it head-on, cutting through its assault with purple lightning before instantly repositioning for another attack. Without giving the beast a moment to recover, she follows up with Demon Art's Fire Mirage, driving her blade through blazing flames and crashing debris. Even after taking both strikes, the monster refuses to fall. Seeing it remain standing, she admits the Guardian is far tougher than expected. Tightening her grip on her sword, she prepares for another exchange as sparks scatter around her. The brutal fight reminds her of her days as a witch hunter. Back then, she always had trusted comrades fighting at her side. She was never alone. Shaking off the memories, she regains her focus. If she were still in her prime, a monster like this wouldn't have slowed her down. With her resolve restored, she raises her blade and unleashes Sword of Annihilation 7th form, Frigid Soul. Just as the battle reaches its climax, a mysterious blonde woman suddenly appears. Frost gathers around her glowing hand as she calmly chants, "Whatever these hands may touch, freeze time." In the next instant, she unleashes Cursed Ice Shatter, instantly freezing the Minotaur before shattering it into countless icy fragments. With the Guardian defeated, the Elysion begins collapsing as Pandora breaks apart in a shower of light. Watching the other world disappear, the woman breathes a sigh of relief, saying she arrived just in time. A few moments later, and the entire area would have been consumed. Floating gently to the ground beneath a parasol surrounded by blooming lilies, she introduces herself. "Good evening. I am Fiona Cassandra, the Witch of the White Flower." Looking at the destroyed Pandora, Fiona wonders if someone intentionally caused it to activate. Then, with a knowing smile, she holds up the crystal and asks if this is what the witch hunter was after. The moment she hears the word witch, the former witch hunter immediately raises her sword. A narration explains that witches are beings empowered by Elysion. Unlike demi-humans, they undergo almost no physical mutations, yet their magical abilities far surpass those of both monsters and demi-humans. She remembers witnessing childlike witches effortlessly slaughtering entire military squads, leaving an unforgettable impression. Ignoring her hostility, Fiona calmly proposes making a deal. The former witch hunter immediately rejects the idea, demanding to know what a witch could possibly offer someone whose job was to hunt them. With a faint smile, she simply replied, "Look." Under the moonlight, Fiona gazes upward with a wistful smile, remarking that the moon is beautiful. The sight immediately triggers an old memory within Kaoru. Years ago, a mysterious woman had said those same words beneath the moon. Back then, Kaoru was still a young warrior who had lost her parents to monsters. With no reason left to live, she threw herself into battle simply hoping to die. That changed when the mysterious woman met her and gave her a name, Kaoru. Back in the present, Fiona notices her expression and asks if she's all right. Kaoru quickly regains her composure and remains cautious. Fiona then asks if Kaoru has only recently arrived in the area. Confused by the question, Kaoru asks why it matters. Fiona gestures toward the destruction around them, explaining that for the people living here, scenes like this have become strangely ordinary. Above them, an ominous sphere of energy forms, identified as a Calamity-class Elysion, one of the 8 illusions known as an overlord. Fiona calmly explains that no matter how terrifying a disaster is, people eventually get accustomed to it when they face it every day. Fiona then realizes she never learned Kaoru's name and asks what she should call her. Kaoru refuses to answer, pointing out that Fiona's name is probably fake. Fiona insists that she doesn't use fake names and that her name is precious to her. Still, she asks what she should call Kaoru for now. Kaoru tells her to call her whatever she wants. Fiona jokingly suggests Crow Girl because of Kaoru's beautiful black hair. Kaoru rejects it and instead gives her a more fitting name, Funeral Flame. Fiona finds the name rather ominous, but Kaoru doesn't care. With her sword pointed at Fiona, Kaoru demands that she hand over Pandora. Fiona calmly agrees to give it to her, but offers something far more interesting instead. She wants Kaoru to become her bodyguard. For the first time, Kaoru is left completely stunned. Fiona repeats her proposal, asking Kaoru to become her bodyguard. Suspicious, Kaoru immediately wonders what the witch is scheming. Before Fiona can explain, police sirens begin approaching. She casually points out that they cause quite a scene and suggests they leave before the police arrive. Instead of fleeing, Fiona invites Kaoru to her place, even mentioning that she has some leftover cake from that morning. Kaoru is left wondering what exactly she has gotten herself into. The two eventually arrive in the Old Capital, a district between Q District and the new capital that still preserves the old streets from the days when Haiguarou was under the Kingdom of Albion's lease. As they climb the long staircase toward Fiona's residence, Kaoru questions the absurdity of the arrangement. Why would a witch hunter ever protect a witch? Fiona finally reveals her real reason. She's been searching for a skilled swordsman capable of entering Elysion. If Kaoru intends to collect Pandoras, working together would benefit both of them. Kaoru remains unconvinced, calling the idea of protecting a witch ridiculous. But then, Fiona reveals the sealing curse around her neck. Kaoru immediately recognizes it as a sealing curse, impressing Fiona with her knowledge. These curse chains restrain witches by exploiting their own magical oaths, and the stronger the witch, the stronger the binding. Fiona explains that she got herself into trouble with the Rounds, Albion's elite witch hunting unit, and ended up having most of her powers sealed away. Kaoru is surprised, especially after seeing Fiona defeat the Minotaur. Fiona clarifies that the sealing curse only allows her to use magic when dealing with matters related to Elysion. That means she can't use her magic against ordinary humans. For now, Fiona jokingly describes herself as nothing more than a helpless cant under the control of the Albion government. When Kaoru questions why Albion would work with witches, Fiona gives a simple answer. They'll use whatever they can get their hands on. Fiona explains that after the Great Catastrophe 32 years ago, the Albion government abandoned most of its colonies and leased territories, causing the kingdom to lose much of its influence across the world. Despite that decline, Albion still seems deeply invested in the Elysion situation on Haiguarou. As a result, the government stationed Fiona there as one of its pawns. Her primary mission is to monitor and investigate the 8th illusion, Overlord. In addition, she's responsible for purging naturally occurring Elysians and dealing with any incidents connected to them, even when those incidents occur outside an Elysian. However, handling everything alone has become increasingly difficult. Between investigating Elysians and dealing with mafias and other organizations hunting down Pandoras, Fiona needs someone capable of fighting alongside her. And that's exactly where Kaoru comes in. Kaoru quickly pieces everything together. Fiona needs a bodyguard, and in exchange, Kaoru would get opportunities to obtain more Pandoras while helping resolve Elysion-related incidents. Fiona presents it as a simple win-win arrangement. However, Kaoru points out an obvious problem. Aren't all Pandoras supposed to be handed over to the Albion government? Fiona admits that's normally the case, but sometimes Pandoras are accidentally destroyed during battles, just like the one they encountered earlier. Kaoru immediately calls her a corrupt witch. Fiona simply shrugs, explaining that the government is willing to overlook such incidents because they need a witch like her. Holding the recovered Pandora, Fiona silently considers the situation. If she accepts this crystal, their deal will be official. Kaoru knows she can't trust a witch, but collecting as many Pandoras as possible is her ultimate goal. Considering Fiona's position and her ability to investigate Elysian incidents across Auron 2 may be her best option. Besides, Kaoru knows she doesn't have much time left. After a moment of hesitation, she finally makes her decision. Yes, Fiona smiles. Then it's a deal. Fiona floats through the air, the wind trailing behind her with a soft whoosh. Kaoru follows behind, but the moment she notices something ahead, she becomes alert. A signboard depicting a black cat marks the building. Fiona casually greets Kaoru with a welcoming "welcome" as they approach. The two then arrived at a large house completely shrouded in swirling mist, accompanied by a whoosh sound effect. With a grand gesture, Fiona proudly proclaims that they have arrived at the Witch's Cafe, Cat's Kissed. Kaoru looks at the building in surprise. A cafe is the last thing she expected to find. Before she can say anything else, two maid twins suddenly burst out to greet Fiona. "Welcome home, mistress!" "Welcome back, Witch-sama!" Kaoru immediately notices the wings on their backs and becomes startled. She asks if they could really be fairies. Fiona confirms them, explaining that they're genuine fairies from Avalon, the fourth illusion that manifested in the northern region of the Albion Kingdom. Then she introduces the twins. The younger brother is Chris, and the older sister is Cheryl. Kaoru takes a closer look at one of the maids and notices something strange. She wonders if this particular one is actually human, since she can't sense any presence of a monster from her at all. Fiona then calls one of the cats over. "Come here." Kaoru follows her gaze and realizes that the children here have their own complicated circumstances as well. Holding a black cat in her arms, Fiona decides that the timing is perfect and begins introducing Kaoru to the staff of Cat's Kissed. One by one, the cafe's resident cats are introduced: a gray cat, a large white cat, a tabby, and finally a black cat. After seeing so many of them, Kaoru becomes overwhelmed and wonders if she really has to memorize every single one. Then she spots the black cat. Its name is Yoru. Kaoru stares at it uneasily, wondering if this is the very same black cat she encountered back then. Before she can think any further, another cat suddenly yawns and breathes out a small puff of smoke, almost like a tiny dragon. Fiona explains that the cats are her familiars and that she has trained them not to attack people. One of the twins suddenly looks surprised and asks Fiona if she picked up another stray cat. The other twin also becomes curious and asked who the unfamiliar woman is. Kaoru immediately corrects them with a flat expression. "I'm not a cat." Fiona then introduces the twins, casually telling them that she's their new part-timer. She reminds the twins to make sure they teach Kaoru the ropes later. The twins cheerfully agree, "Yes, okay." Kaoru, however, is immediately alarmed. "Hold on, what do you mean a part-timer?" She had assumed she would simply accompany Fiona during her regular duties, not become a cafe employee. Fiona then explains how the arrangement actually works. Aside from her official missions, the cafe also receives requests from the police and local citizens. However, those cases don't arrive every single day, so whenever there are no cases to deal with, Kaoru will be expected to work as a staff member at Cat's Kissed. Fiona then cheerfully turned towards Cheryl and asks if she brought the thing she had requested. Cheryl happily confirms it. "Yes, Witch-sama." Then she snapped her fingers. In a puff of sparkling smoke, something suddenly appeared. It's a dress. Kaoru watched in complete surprise. Fiona proudly presents the newly prepared Cat's Kissed maid uniform, explaining that although it was a rush order, the outfit turned out great because everyone worked hard on the sewing. The twins eagerly chime in, proudly agreeing that they worked really hard. Kaoru, already looking rather uncomfortable, stares at the uniform with growing suspicion. "Don't tell me that's for me." Fiona confirms it without hesitation. She holds out another accessory and tells Kaoru that it should look great on her. She also says that she'll need this as well. Kaoru's expression immediately falls when Fiona places a cat ear hairband on her. A short while later, Kaoru appears dressed in the complete maid uniform, looking extremely uncomfortable. The twins immediately shower her with compliments, repeatedly calling her cute. Fiona watches with an amused expression and remarks that the outfit seems to have quite some destructive power. Kaoru, however, isn't amused at all. She protests that she agreed to become Fiona's bodyguard, but never agreed to become a maid. Fiona factually explains that being a bodyguard is simply one of Kaoru's duties as a staff member of Cat's Kista. If Kaoru doesn't like the arrangement, there's always one simple solution. She can return the Pandora. Kaoru falls silent, completely defeated. Then, Fiona immediately moves on to her training, explaining that Kaoru's first task will be memorizing the different types and brands of tea, along with the proper way to brew each one. Kaoru slumps down in a chair, silently regretting her decision. Making a contract with a witch of all people was clearly a mistake. Before she can dwell on it any further, the cafe doors burst open. A girl dramatically rushes inside, shouting along, "Ah," as she struggles to catch her breath, before finally managing to say that she has finally made it. Kaoru immediately turned toward the newcomer with a wary expression. A badge and holster are visible at the girl's hip. Seeing them, she becomes suspicious. Could she be police? Kaoru immediately looks toward Fiona with suspicion, wondering if the witch has somehow sold her out. Fiona quickly reassures her that Fang Lin is simply a regular customer. She then warmly welcomes her, mentioning that it's been a while since they last met. Fang Lin, exhausted from the journey, complains that the route to the cafe keeps changing every single time. Although a small cat helped guide her part of the way, she still ended up completely lost for 2 hours. Fiona explains that the cafe is protected by a witch's barrier. The magic is designed so that only people who genuinely want to reach the cafe can find their way inside, making it an effective countermeasure for troublesome customers. Fang Lin clarifies that her visit isn't an official request from the police. Instead, she's come because she needs a personal favor. With a determined expression, she reveals her request. She wants Fiona to find a friend who has gone missing in Haiguarou. It seems their very first request has already arrived. The story then shifts to the cafe's bar and lounge area. Outside, the building sits beneath the full moon as night settles over the city. Inside, drinks are prepared and served with a soft clink. Soon, everyone gathers around the table. Fiona, Kaoru, Fang Lin, and the 2 fairy twins as drinks are handed out. Fang Lin thanks them for the drink before glancing toward Kaoru and asking Fiona who she is. Fiona introduces Kaoru as their new part-timer. Fang Lin immediately welcomes her, and Kaoru politely returns the greeting. However, Fang Lin soon notices Kaoru's unusual outfit. She asks whether the uniform is actually a military uniform, and if it's a genuine one. Kaoru simply tells her to not worry about it. As everyone settles in, Fiona casually asks how Director Sigzal, the security chief, has been doing since they last spoke a month ago. Fang Lin says he's as busy as ever. In fact, she recently heard over the police radio that an ARC agency transport had been attacked in District Q while she was on her way to the cafe. Fiona immediately recognizes that as trouble. Fang Lin adds that Sigzal has also been completely occupied with matters in the new capital lately. When Fiona asks what is happening there, Fang Lin says she's been hearing rumors for some time. Cheap drugs have apparently been spreading throughout the new capital. Just then, Fiona notices something on her phone and remembers why Fang Lin came in the first place. She reminds her that she came to make a job request. Fang Lin gets straight to the point and asks them to find her missing friend. Fiona hesitates before admitting that she doesn't want to sound insensitive, but people disappearing in Haiguarou is hardly unusual. Fang Lin acknowledges that she already knows how dangerous the district is. A map of Haorantou then reveals just how enormous Haiguarou is. Covering roughly half the land area of District Q, Haiguarou is a colossal multi-layered megastructure inhabited by tens of thousands of people. 32 years ago, when the 8th Elysion, Overlord, manifested, countless refugees were displaced. They built layer after layer of illegal structures over the ruins, eventually transforming Haiguarou into an enormous and unprecedented labyrinth. With rival mafia groups constantly fighting over territory, people disappearing has become an everyday occurrence. The district has effectively become a completely lawless, extraterritorial zone where even the public security police cannot freely operate. Kaoru is surprised and asks whether infiltrating Haiguarou is really that difficult for the police. Fiona confirms that it is. She then recalled what happened the last time the police attempted to send undercover operatives into the district. None of them returned alive, with their bodies later being dumped in back alleys. As if that wasn't enough, the security chief himself once discovered a severed bull's head placed inside his bedroom. After that incident, the police stopped daring to interfere with Haiguarou. Fang Lin desperately pleads with Fiona to hear her out. She explains that the number of missing persons has risen to an abnormal level. In just the past month, more than 100 people have disappeared. Among them are 6 of Fang Lin's own friends. All of them have vanished without a trace. Fiona quietly acknowledges the seriousness. That really is a lot. But wait, Fiona presses Fenglin further. Since the police can't properly monitor what happens inside Haiguarou, she wonders how Fenglin managed to obtain information about the disappearances. Fenglin hesitates before finally revealing the truth. She originally came from Haiguarou. Fenglin explains that she was an orphan who grew up alongside other children in the same situation. With nowhere else to go, they formed a gang and survived together. They spent their days extorting and robbing corporate targets from the new capital, as well as local mafia syndicates. At the same time, they were constantly caught in violent turf wars with other groups. 3 years ago, however, everything changed. During an illegal excavation of an Elysion anomaly in the new capital, their gang leader was killed by a monster. With their leader gone, the entire group eventually collapsed, and most of Fenglin's friends were rounded up by the police. After that, Fenglin decided to become a police officer. Her goal was simple: to help pull children who ended up like them out of the darkness and give them a chance at a better life. Now, she reveals that every person who has recently gone missing was an old friend from those days. Fiona listens carefully and realizes that Fenglin has somehow managed to stay in contact with her old friends in Haiguarou. Fenglin admits that she has, although revealing that connection to her superiors could cause serious problems given her current position. Fiona calmly assures her that she doesn't need to worry. After all, a witch always knows how to keep a secret. Fiona then asks whether Fenglin has any idea why her friends disappeared. Perhaps they were caught in the middle of a mafia turf war or became involved in some other dangerous situation. Fenglin admits that she doesn't know for certain, but she remembers something one of her old friends told her when they came to ask for advice. According to them, they had nearly been kidnapped by a Jiangshi. Fiona immediately recognizes the name. Jiangshi are associated with the 7th illusion, Yipang Palace, which manifested in the southwestern region of the Ryoka Empire. She recalls that Jiangshi are the monsters that emerge from the Elysians surrounding it. However, Fiona points out another strange detail. Jiangshi look almost identical to ordinary humans, so there's a possibility that the person simply made a mistake. Fenglin admits that she doesn't know. Fiona then gives her a cautious answer. The information is far too vague, and considering her position, she can't afford to act recklessly based on nothing more than a rumor. Fenglin looks at her anxiously. "Witch-sama?" Fiona rests against the back of Kaoru's chair and considers Fenglin's request. Until now, she would have rejected the idea of acting on such vague information. But now, things are different. With a bodyguard like Kaoru who can handle the dirty work, Fiona can afford to take a few more risks. She makes it clear that she doesn't dislike peaceful solutions, but even if they have to get their hands dirty, helping the public security police will at least put them in their debt. Fenglin reacts with renewed hope. Meanwhile, Kaoru begins thinking about the situation herself. If the story about the Jiangshi is true, then there may be something much bigger behind the disappearances. Could a witch be involved? After considering the possibilities, Kaoru finally makes up her mind. So, this is my first job then. Fiona immediately confirms that they'll take the case. It's settled then. Overwhelmed with relief, Fenglin thanks them tearfully. That night, the scene shifts to a city rooftop as Fenglin prepares to leave. She gives them a formal salute and tells them that she'll be counting on them before waving goodbye. As Fenglin heads off, Fiona looks down at the box she left behind. Her tribute turns out to be mooncakes from Keikoen, which Fiona happily notes will go perfectly with a cup of tea. Kaoru, meanwhile, wonders why Fiona isn't charging Fenglin a fee. Fiona explains that it depends on the client. Their operational expenses are already covered, so as long as she has enough money to buy food for the cats, she's satisfied. She then assures Kaoru that she'll make sure her salary is properly included in their expenses. Kaoru takes a bite of a mooncake and calmly says she wasn't worried about that. With the matter settled, Fiona explains that their first step is to make contact with Fenglin's friends in Haiguarou. The two sit down at a table and begin planning their investigation. Then Fiona brings up another important detail about the Jiangshi. Unlike ordinary ghouls, Jiangshi can be controlled and made to follow precise commands. More importantly, they can pass themselves off as ordinary humans, which makes them especially useful. Because of this, witches often employ Jiangshi as their familiars. Kaoru listens carefully before asking the question that has been on her mind. Do you think a witch is involved? Fiona, holding her black cat, admits that it's still too early to say whether a witch is involved. There's also another possibility, that an Elysion naturally manifested somewhere inside Haiguarou. Kaoru finds that difficult to believe. How could something as dangerous as an Elysion appear there without anyone noticing? Fiona continues playing with another cat as she explains that nobody completely understands the layout of a place as enormous and complicated as Haiguarou. If the Elysion were relatively small, it could easily go unnoticed. But there is another, more troubling possibility. Someone may already know about it and deliberately be keeping it hidden. Fiona leaves Kaoru with that unsettling thought before suggesting they head out in the morning since it's already getting late. She tells Kaoru that if she wants to rest, she can use one of the rooms on the second floor. Then Fiona casually offers another option. She asks whether Kaoru would like to take a bath first. Kaoru is immediately caught off guard. A bath? She can't believe Fiona actually has a proper bath available. Really? An actual bath? Fiona awkwardly confirms that she does, although she warns Kaoru that it's an Albion-style bath. Kaoru quietly considers the offer. She hasn't had a proper bath in days, and the thought of soaking in hot water sounds incredibly appealing. After a moment, she turns toward Fiona and accepts the offer. Thanks for the offer. Fiona cheerfully tells her to enjoy it. As Kaoru leaves to take her bath, Fiona watches her go and reflects on how the people of Shinshu really do seem to be obsessed with bathing. Then, Fiona's expression becomes more thoughtful. Funeral flame. She quietly recalls that Kaoru is a witch hunter from Shinshu. Holding her cat, Fiona wonders to herself whether Kaoru might eventually become the one who kills her. Meanwhile, the empty hallway stretches across the second floor, with several doors lining the corridor. Inside the bathroom, a bath is prepared as the tap is turned, with a chair and towel rack sitting nearby. Kaoru finally settles into the bath, steam rising around her as she allows herself to relax for the first time in days. Yet, even in the peaceful atmosphere, her thoughts return to the strange situation she had found herself in. How ironic. She can't help but think about how strange her current circumstances are. Of all things, she has somehow ended up becoming a witch's bodyguard.